This week's edition of Church Media Design TV is sponsored by the Gurus of Tech Conference, June 28th through the 30th. Welcome to another edition of Church Media Design TV, tips, tricks, and how-to for you, the church media designer. Whether you're a media designer, a student pastor, a volunteer, a kids pastor, a senior pastor, I could name off a million things, a janitor, whatever you may be. If you're using media, we want to give you some tips and tricks along the way to use that media to increase God's kingdom. We want to use the media that surrounds us every day to help share the most important story, and that is the story of Christ. I'm your host, Brad Zimmerman, and I'm joined every week by my favorite bobble-headed friends. You got it right, we actually got a new cast today. We got a new but very old friend. He's been around from the beginning but doesn't make it on screen very much. It's Fred Flintstone, followed by little Whitey, Colonel Sanders, and of course, Jesus Christ, the Son of the Lord Most High. Well, on this week's edition of Church Media Design TV, we're going to be talking about print project management. Now, sounds a little hoity-toity in my opinion, but we're going to be talking about all those big print projects that you do every so often in your church, whether it be an annual report or some sort of newsletter, or it could even be your weekly bulletins or that sort of thing. We want to talk about that process and how to make that as easy as possible and painless as possible, but yet get out the best quality you can. So we're going to be talking about that, plus a whole lot of news about some cool stuff that's going on, give you guys some great resources, and inspire you with a whole lot of color. So if my favorite bobbleheaded friends are ready, let's get into it. Well, some big news. WordPress 3.0 is out in the wild. WordPress is a content management system for blogs and websites. It does some really amazing stuff, and the third generation of WordPress is very impressive. And one of my favorite parts about WordPress is that they're continually bringing up new updates. It doesn't go by a week or a month that there's not something new going on. You don't have to wait forever for this content management system to get some updates, and that's because it's open source. The community is taking care of this project and putting in some awesome new features. And speaking of new features, let's head over to Web App Storm, which is part of the Envato network, to find out about 10 great new features in WordPress 3.0. And some of these features are really, they don't seem huge, but they really are. Like the first one, which is custom admin username and password. In the past, it always used admin as the first user of the account, and it gave you a default password that you had to like plug in and then go reset your password. Well, now you can make your own username and your own password, which for security purposes is huge, because now hackers can't immediately try to hack the admin account because, well, it doesn't have to exist. Also, they did some cool stuff. They got rid of the Kubrick theme, and now there's a 2010 theme, which is a great starter theme for anyone who's going to do some theme development. They have custom headers, custom post types, advanced menus, and a whole lot more. So head over to Web App Storm to find out more about that. The next thing that I wanted to show you guys is 50 websites you wouldn't believe that use WordPress, because WordPress isn't just for blogs, it isn't just for podcasts, it's for everyone. And this post has 50 sites that you really wouldn't believe use WordPress as the back-end the system that runs these websites. And the one that really impressed me was Field Runners. Field Runners is an app for the iPhone. It's a tower defense game, and when you look at their website, it does not scream WordPress in the least bit, but it is entirely built inside WordPress, so make sure to check that out. Head over to WordPress.org. You can get a version of WordPress 3.0 that you install on your own server at WordPress.org. If you go to WordPress.com, that is a third-party hosted service, but WordPress.org is for your church website or something that you would host on your own server, so check it out today. Well, let's reach into the stockpile and grab you guys some great resources. And the whole reason that I do this is to let you guys know about awesome resources that are out there on the web that you can use every single day or week in your church or your media situation. And the first one is the complete guide to Bowser. Yes, it's the complete guide to Mario's Bowser. That's what we're talking about in Church Media today. So check out Bowser. He's pretty awesome. No, it's the complete guide to cross-browser compatibility checks. And so this is a pretty cool deal. It talks about Adobe's Browser Lab and has browser shots and the browser sandbox and NetRenderer and Browser Camp and a whole bunch of other crap. So there's tons of different ways that you can check how your website is looking and working on the web through all of these different things. And the next one is from Church Create. Say goodbye to pixelation with this open source image enlarger. And this is a pretty cool little app that works on Mac and PC and allows you to blow up images and still retain some quality. So he tested it out by blowing up an image that was 800 by 755 up to 4,800 by 4,530 pixels, and you can see the quality difference after. It does some kind of smart blurring and that sort of thing, but it really does come out looking pretty good. And this is a great piece of software to use if you have to blow up some artwork to print resolution that you don't have a higher quality of. And this is also a way to blow up something without having to use Photoshop, which it does a much better job, but still this is going to really help your images look better. And at the end of the day, it's free. And our last resource is from cgtextures.com. This is one of my favorite texture websites. I go here all the time because they have a great organization system. So I can go in here and say, okay, I'm looking for wood. But not only am I looking for wood, am I looking for wood ends, planks, rough, and we could go to planks, and then it has it still broken down more. So we have clean and fences and painted and overlapping. And so it really breaks things down into easy to find categories. And then the images are really, really high quality. So we'll find one we like here. So this one, and you can see that it's huge. You have to have a premium membership to get the 5,296 size, but you can get the large 3,000 by 2,000 size for free. So some really great stuff. So check out cgtextures.com, churchcreate.com, and I can't even remember the first one. What was it here? Oh, and the complete guide to cross-browser compatibility check from Hong Kayat, I don't even know how to say it, .com. Well, before we move on, let's say thank you to our sponsor. And this week, our sponsor is the Gurus of Tech Conference. It's coming up really soon, but I want to make sure you guys know about it. It's June 28th through the 30th in Louisville, Kentucky, and this is a free church technical conference. And it is such a great time. And this year, it's going to be better than ever. This is the second edition of it. I was there last year. Many of you guys were there with me last year, and I thank you guys for all showing up. You can find out more and sign up. It's going to be at the Block at Southeast Christian, which is just an awesome facility. It feels like we're sitting at the House of Blues, basically. Like, it's just awesome. And it starts on a Monday and ends on a Wednesday, so you still got time to get stuff done for the weekend if you need to be. I'll be there. Barton Damer will be there. Rob Thomas from Igniter Media will be there. And so many other great speakers will be there talking about so much different stuff. There's going to be these Jedi sessions, which are next step, next level breakouts on After Effects and Photoshop. I'm going to be doing some different breakouts on creative workflow and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I want you guys to show up. It's perfect to bring your team to because it's free. So all you got to do is pay for one hotel room, shove as many people in as you can, and check it out. It'll be a great time. I'm bringing some students with me that are helping out at our church, and I encourage you guys to show up and bring some of your volunteers with you as well. So make sure to check out gurusoftech.com. Well, today we're going to be talking about print project management, and I know this could kind of sound boring and stupid and take it or leave it, but I think this is really important because not only do I want to help you guys create media, but I also want to help you guys be efficient at the media that's going on and be able to work on all of these big projects. And some of this could be applied to way more than just print. This could be applied to videos and a whole lot more. But I recently just worked on our project. It's called The Big Current. All of our print materials or all of our weekly updates are all called The Current or A Current. So we have the E-Current, which is our weekly newsletter. We have The Current, which is our handout that we have on Sunday mornings. And then we have a quarterly Big Current, which is a big old newsletter that we've been doing. And let's check it out. This is the one that I just finished. It's a 20-page booklet that is 8.5 by 8.5 by 14, folded in half, and there's 20 individual pages on here. And there's so much great information. There's tons of great articles that were made. But while I was doing this project, I learned so much because up until this point, I'm proud to say that I passed this off to a volunteer, and they actually did this entire project from start to finish, and I never once touched it, which is really cool. But one problem came into play, that there was no consistency in this project. Each person had their own design style. Each person had their own idea of what this project should be because I had never done one at all. And so I really wanted to take this project on and say, let's set a standard of what the Big Current should really look like. And so I went through and made this one because I really wanted to set that standard. So we're going to go through a whole bunch of checklist items to make sure that your next print project turns out great and that you can go through it without getting frustrated with people on your staff or administrators or volunteers that are helping you along the way, so that you can get a great project in the end. Well, the first thing on our checklist is planning and meeting. Now, I know a lot of you guys hate meetings. You have way too many meetings every single week about so much stupid stuff, and for real, most of you guys don't need to be in half of those meetings. They're not important to you and you shouldn't be there in the first place. I would encourage you to try to get rid of as many meetings that you don't need because they're just a waste of time. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the meetings that you do need to have. And I know some of you guys come from churches and staffs that are way small, and you guys have no one on, you don't have a creative team, you don't have a team to work with. I would encourage you to find some people and make these meetings happen, whether it be your wife and a leader in your ministry area. So you're a youth worker and doing this stuff, and you have to meet with your wife and one of your leaders that you really trust their ideas. Or maybe it's grabbing the senior pastor and the secretary and saying, hey, can we sit down for 20 minutes and just talk about this project? But the big thing that I want to encourage you on is the first one is you need to have a pre-planning meeting and just sit down and say, okay, this big newsletter, we're going to talk about a newsletter today, but you can apply this to different projects. This big old newsletter, I want to do this. We want to do this project. We have it planned out for every quarter of the year. What do we want to have part of it? And just throw out the idea to everyone and say, what do you want to do your article about? We would like to have an article from every ministry area, so we want one from kids and students and missions and small groups and the whole 9 yards. What are those articles going to be about? And just get people's minds going and try to get some titles from people. So just in that pre-planning meeting, getting people's ideas going, and then hearing, oh, you'd like to do an interview with someone? Well, if you're going to do that interview, let's send somebody with a camera to go take pictures of that person or of that situation, so we have some photography to go with that article. So in that pre-planning meeting, you can start to get some basics of what this whole thing will take part of. The next one will be a check-in meeting to say, hey, are your articles done? Or do you still need time for them? And setting down that deadline of when those articles need to be done and checking in and saying, okay, we got all the stuff. Then after you have it all, you can start creating and putting that all together. You can use a program like InDesign, which I would highly recommend. That's what I use to lay this whole thing out. There's also an open source program called Scribus that you can get, which is an open source desktop publishing program to lay that out. But you could also use Publisher or whatever you have. Use what you have. Illustrator, you could do the whole thing in Illustrator. I would recommend doing it in Illustrator versus Photoshop. Illustrator would be much better if you have only those two options. And then the last meeting you need to do is a review meeting. You need to print out the whole thing and set it down and hand it to everyone and review it and get their thoughts. You may not want to listen to everyone's opinion, but you need to hear all of their opinions, and you need to look at it and say, what needs to be changed? What can be better? What should stay the same? Do we need more or less articles? Can we get rid of some text? The whole 9 yards. So those are some meetings and planning that you need to do to make this project succeed. The next thing on our print management checklist is do your research. Now, I know a lot of you guys would just say, okay, we're going to make this thing, and then you're going to get going into the project and you're going to get so stuck and you're going to be at a place where you're like, I don't know what to do. There's so many different articles here. It's like designing 20 different series graphics and over again. And you can look and see, and I did my research and I said, I don't want to be a newsletter. And you know what I decided is a newsletter, you can tell something is a newsletter when it's an image at the top of the page and an article on the front of the publication. You can notice there is no article on the front of this publication, so it makes it feel less like a newsletter. So I said, I want to do this more in a magazine style. So what did I do? You know what? I went and grabbed some magazines. It was really this crazy idea of like actually looking at some magazines. So here we have Relevant Magazine. I'm sure a lot of you guys subscribe to it. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And as I started to dissect Relevant Magazine, I started to notice some trends. And that was they use a lot of the same ideas for articles over and over again. So if we look in here, let me pull up this page here. So you can see we got this article, 3 Rules of Christian Satire, which is by John Acuff, which he happens to be speaking at the Echo Conference. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the layout. So you can see we got an image up here with title, and we got the text and a little quote here. And so it's a pretty basic layout, but if you look on the next page, it's the exact same thing. It's an article by Jason Boyett, but we have the same header image, we have the same title, the same highlight, and they're really pretty much identical. You can flip back and forth and see that they're pretty much the exact same layout. I started to notice these trends and started looking and noticed that a lot of magazines do the same thing. So what did I do in ours? I actually went through and I did... I would pick up mine, but it's on the floor now. I actually went through and made 5 of the articles with the exact same layout, and it actually made it so that there was some consistency across the magazine without having to reinvent the wheel the whole time. So that's really important. The next thing is to check into what kind of printer you're going to use and do your research on how your magazine or your newsletter is going to be printed. Now, we have a nice printer in-house that we got from Print Management Solutions, and I really enjoy it. I think it prints out really nice quality, and I knew what we could do. We could only print 8.5 by 14. That's the biggest paper it will do. And so I said, well, let's use the biggest paper we can use, and let's do something that's at an odd size. It's not the normal size that you're gonna see from the home printer where they take an 8.5 by 11 and they fold it one of 2 ways. We want to do something a little bit different. But you can also look into a site like gotprint.com, and you can look and see what they have for printing and how much that's going to cost you, because it will cost you to make this kind of thing. So the format becomes really important, what printer you're going to use, what paper you're going to use, and then doing the research to check out the magazines. The next thing on our checklist is copy first and create second. Now, this is maybe a bit of, some of you guys might disagree with me, but I highly recommend copying somebody first before you try to create all by yourself, especially if print isn't a normal thing for you. So I went in, and I'm not a print designer at first. I'm a designer, but I wouldn't say I'm great at print. And so I went and took those relevant articles and I said, I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to follow what they've done, and I'm going to use the same idea of a header image with an article, and I basically just ripped it right off. But what it did at the end of the day is I started to understand how to make some of the technical aspects work, and next time I'll be able to make an article without that on my own. And I also went through and said, I'm only going to do that for 5 of the articles. The other 5 pages I'm going to do all by myself. And so I did all these other articles on my own with my own creativity. So I started to create on my own after I had used somebody else to get me a baseline for the magazine. So I don't think it's a bad thing for you to copy first and create second. The next thing on our checklist is to make sure to utilize what you have. And this goes back to the printer situation. I utilized the printer that we had in office with the paper that I knew we could print with, and I used it to its fullest ability. But you can also do this with people and resources. So make sure to utilize people at your church that are great photographers. Get them into the mix of things, and that comes down to planning enough ahead of time that you can ask them to take certain photos for you or that sort of thing. And you can also, use photos that you already have, or use design that you already have. You don't have to reinvent the wheel for this whole project, but utilize all of the stuff that you have. So make sure to look and see what you have around you so you can save some money and maybe do it yourself instead of having to go buy photography or whatever it may be. But all of these things add together to give you a great project at the end of the day. And the last thing on the checklist is don't forget who you are. It is really easy in this project, for me it was at least, to just make something that looks really cool. But at the end of the day, I don't want to make something that looks cool. I want to make something that works for my church and for our people. And so I wanted to make sure to utilize their photography. So half of that magazine is photography from a guy in my life group. We used a bunch of photos that students had taken, and all the articles were written by watermarkers and staff members, and we tried to include photos of people a part of our church. And so we wanted to really remember who we were. And luckily, I had set up a precedent of some pretty good design and some pretty cutting edge design. So for us to use this design layout, it didn't seem off the wall. But for your church and your situation, it might seem off the wall, but you can still take a step towards quality without making something feel like this super old school church newsletter. So just remember who you are throughout this whole project, and don't get caught up in making the best thing. Worry about making something that works for you and your people. So that's a checklist of some great things that will help you along the way in your print project management, but also will work for videos and a whole lot more. If you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, make sure to hit me up on my email, brad@ChurchMediaDesign.tv. I would love to hear your thoughts, or leave a comment on the website on the episode page on your thoughts about this. Well, this week's inspiration comes from one of my favorites. If you know me at all, or you may have picked it up, I love Disney. I lived in Orlando for a while, and that just furthered my love for Disney. If I could move back to anywhere / work anywhere, I would like to retire to Orlando and work at Disney for my retirement years. That's one of my goals, but that's not very inspiring. What is inspiring is that Disney just did a brand new end of day show for their California park in, California. And it is called World of Color, and it's just phenomenal. I won't say much more besides I got to see the world premiere on Ustream. It was an amazing event. Stayed up late one night, watched it from my bed, and it was just great. So check out this promotional video of World of Color. I think you're gonna love it.
I think a night at World of Color is going to be a wonderful family experience. It's really going to be a theatrical spectacular.
We're presenting some of our classic animation to the park guests in a new way, and they're going to see additional artwork that they've never seen before.
We have a moment from Up with the house and the balloons, and when the balloons come floating up through the sky, seeing it projected on this enormous field of water, it was just absolutely thrilling.
Stephen wanted to have the show have different mediums used, so trying out like paper sculpture, CG animation, traditional animation. It's just sort of an artist's dream to be able to tackle some of these characters.
It's just really exciting that the World of Color is taking independent artists and bringing them into the fold and letting them work creatively.
To help bring the fountains to life, we brought in a choreographer named Josh Horner. Fantastic dancer.
The beauty of a water fountain is the shape and the power of it going up and down and up and around. But as dancers, we sort of simulate that same thing, but we bring the life to it. These fountains that are going to have the color in them, they're going to just be like bursting with emotion.
And it really helped all of our water programmers watch him and really translate that into water.
World of Color lights up the entire Paradise Bay, and guests will be able to view the show anywhere around the lagoon.
We've got two great ways to see the show that are paired both with food and with viewing. And so the first one is our pre-fee options, the 3-course pre-fee meals both at Trattoria and at Ariel's Grotto. Another option is our World of Color picnic boxes, which are available through Disneyland.com. Each of the boxes come with a reserved viewing.
Another way for our guests to be able to see the show is to use FastPass. They can go to Grizzly Rapids, use the FastPass machines there, and get a specific show, assigned section, and a return time, so they can spend their day enjoying the attractions and shows, and then return a specific time to see World of Color.
Part of the recording of the orchestra for any big spectacular, and particularly for World of Color, the music is everything.
This one for World of Color is really extra special because we're at the Abbey Road studio here in London.
One of the really special things that happened today was to take a piece of music from the wonderful World of Color, which has been around for all these years that you have a connection with, and then try to take it and move to something new and fresh.
When we chose the music for the show, we looked at all the different colors that we could create from the music, you know, things that would make people laugh, things that would bring out the beauty. And that's really how we kind of put the whole show together from beginning to end. It's just a journey through musical colors.
I want them to walk away saying, wow, I've never seen anything like that. I have to come see it again. I want to see the show. I want to bring my friends. We're trying to deliver something that they really have never seen before.
Well, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Church Media Design TV. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can always send me an email, brad@ChurchMediaDesign.tv. You can hit me up on twitter.com/CMDTV, facebook.com/CMDTV, or my personal one, which is facebook.com/Bradley.Zimmerman. You can get in touch with me at any of those places. Leave me comments, questions, or the best place to do it is right here on the episode page, and you can leave a comment below, and that would be awesome. You can subscribe through iTunes or subscribe to the RSS on the website. Tons of ways to stay in touch, and I encourage you guys to do that. Also, I really want to encourage you to head over to the website. There's so much going on throughout the week. It's not just this show anymore. It's so much more. There's great daily inspiration and articles, and you can find out tons of information on the website, so make sure to go to ChurchMediaDesign.tv to find out so much more. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that next week we're going to be doing an episode on advanced After Effects shape layers with expressions. So if you need a brush up on expressions or on After Effects period, we're going to be talking about that next week, and I'm excited to talk about that one. It's pretty cool using math to actually do something that really is worthwhile and not stupid, and it's fun doing math that's not that hard. So we're going to be talking about that next week, so make sure to tune into that one. And as for me and my favorite bobbleheaded friends, we're saying see you later.